Originally in Spanish, April 2023. Tina, can I ask you a question related to my next video on hybridization? Yes, of course. Thank you. Something that occurred to me. The question is, Yashi said that it is true that some ET races hybridize with humans. But one thing, why with terrestrial humans and not with non-terrestrial humans like Taigetans, etc.? Is it because it is easy to erase the memory of terrestrial humans, for example? But the terrestrial human DNA is damaged. It is not working properly. Why not hybridize with some ET race with fully activated DNA? Is it because there, if other races would find out that someone wants to hybridize with them, they would not allow it, and here they have it easy, because they just have to come in, Grace or whoever, apply memory wipe, and off they go.
That's what I say. Why not hybridize with a primary race, not a secondary one like the terrestrial one?
I suppose it is because those humans were already on Earth, and if they were primitive, they were ignorant of space matters, as would happen with Lyrian space humans. I don't see any other specific reason. But they are, in themselves, the same species, Lyrians and humans. For example, the Neanderthals themselves were not an inferior species, as they are described in many places, but were simply more Lyrians, another variant of thousands and thousands that are in existence. They just weren't very technologically developed, because they were in the process, or still in process, and at a pre-industrial level. Yes, but it doesn't answer the question of why they didn't hybridize there with other star races. Their DNA is not damaged with chemicals, etc. That's right. But I guess the DNA of humans on Earth back then was also very pure. No contaminants or anything like that. But I am referring to the present times. Why not go ask the Antarians to hybridize to repair their lineages instead of taking Earth humans by night? I think because the Antarians would not give them permission, so they do it with humans without their consent by erasing their memories. The stellar ones would defend themselves, yes, they are technological. Let's see if they try to put needles and syringes in a Taigetan or an Engan. Let's see how that goes. Yes, that's why, exactly. In present times, it is still done on behalf of the Grace, as gardeners who are, according to them, correcting the DNA damage so that the person can continue with his life plan. Also, some ET races do it to create new beings that serve better for their dark purposes. For example, humans in general are awakening a lot in their consciousness. That is why they are trying so hard to dumb them down in any way they can. There are also experiments by governments. The reasons are to control them more, for exploitation. Also, there is the question of some returning that damaged DNA to the initial stellar configuration. And also, although I have no way of knowing this at the moment, it is a bit naive to think that stellars are not being used for hybridization as well. But yes, I accept that there are still a lot of unknowns about the topic. I would imagine that picking up a stellar person would work better. Their DNA is not damaged. Today, yes, that's true, it's very damaged. However, it may be damaged by being in the 3D, but in itself, the human DNA is not necessarily worse than that of Taygeta. And as I said above, the stellar people wouldn't let anyone do that so easily. Also, another reason for the hybridization is, from the very expanded aspect, to insert more variants of better adapted humans to populate distant and strange planets.
But who is doing that? I don't see much logic in it. Having more than 400,000 human morph races in this sector of the galaxy.
Many races of the Federation. It is said that they do that, although I don't have more specific data on that at this time. As was said before, long ago, planets are artificially populated. Life is not born there as by evolution of the species. That just filters out strong individuals from weak ones, creating a little bit of evolution or species variance, and not a whole new species. But wait, do they do it with each other, ET races, or with terrestrial DNA? It would have to be with both. But with the terrestrials, is it because it's easy for them to take it? Because humans don't refuse it? Is it just because of that? Or because there is something in the terrestrial DNA that they want? The terrestrial DNA is a mixture of many stellar DNAs, all in one. That is another reason. Because there are many star races there being human, and their identity is embodied in their DNA. So Earth turns out to be like a DNA supermarket for those who want to hybridize or create new variants of any species. Ah, interesting. Now we are on to something. So there then would be the different characteristic in the DNA of the terrestrial human.
But do they have any preference when selecting the person? I mean, do they take the DNA from the black humans, Chinese, white humans, etc.?
Yes, there is a marked preference for abducting whites. Everyone gets abducted, but whites are the ones who get abducted the most, according to my data. It is logical. If there are so many races playing at being human, all there in one soup, of course they are going to use Earth as a supermarket to go shopping for DNA. But why not just ask an Arcturian race if they want an Arcturian, without having to look for a terrestrial Arcturian starseed? Well, who's to say they don't? But why white people? And who are those they with that preference? Who are we referring to? Anyone who abducts. The list is long, but the ones who abduct the most are the Greys. I think they abduct depending on what they are specifically looking for in terms of genes. But I mean the Federation races that take from the supermarket to populate new planets. Do they also take more white people? And if so, what is the reason for that? I only know that, in general, the highest percentage of abductees on Earth are white. Although everyone is prone to be abducted, regardless of the color of their skin. But yes, there is an association here. According to my perception, the white races are the majority of the stellar Lyrian races. So, by association, it has something to do with it. Simply because there are more white people out there than those of other colors. So, more components or DNA refills are needed or required for those white ones. Okay. And one more question occurred to me. You said, Tina, that there are Federation races that also take human DNA, like from the supermarket, to make new models for new planets. But we also know that the changes are not sustained without mind control of consciousness. How does this mental cementing take place on these new worlds in these new models? Although I do not have all the data, what I do know is that it is not that they must cement the changes with consciousness once they are made, as the invasive races have done on Earth, not to say reptilians specifically. What happens is that it is rather the other way around. First, they have a certain consciousness, and their body is not well adapted to what they require or to where they live. So the artificial genetic change is made to adapt the body to the consciousness and the physical environment where it is located. What happens is that in the physical realms, the changes are slow if they are done only by consciousness. This can be seen very well in the case of Earth. And that is why there are so many positive abductions. I am not talking about the invasive ones or the MILAB. Precisely because many changes are needed to the human bodies, I mean Lyrians in general, so that they can function properly on Earth. Earth is not a suitable place for Lyrian bodies, since the atmosphere is hostile, as is the gravity, which is much higher than on other planets inhabited by Lyrian races. There are many, countless other planets better adapted to support Lyrian human life than Earth. These are the so-called super-habitable planets. Two examples of these are Temer and Alfrata, formerly Phaethon. Thanks, wow! Interesting that first in these cases it is the consciousness that requires something, and then the body gets adapted.
But I don't understand. They only take DNA to repopulate other worlds? And how do they reproduce those humans? In vitro and incubators? Or do they take human specimens from Earth to other worlds directly so that they can reproduce?
It is done to live specimens. It is up to them if they have offspring or not. Mostly, it is done when they are already on the planets on their own, as it happens on Earth with the abducted by the Grace. It is to help them to better adapt to the conditions of those planets.
Do you mean that living humans are taken to repopulate other worlds?
No, Lyrians migrate to new planets that do not always have ideal conditions for Lyrian bodies. It is there where genetic changes are made that would help them to better adapt to these new conditions. They are Lyrian race emigrants who decide on their own to populate other worlds. The DNA of each Lyrian race is then modified to adapt it to their environment.
But, for example, Taigetans live on 4 planets in Taigeta. There, they have had to adapt their DNA, or it wasn't necessary?
If conditions are favorable on new planets, there is no need, as was the case with Temer, which is a super-habitable planet.
What is the name of that ice planet on Taigeta?
Dakote.
Yes, that one. Nothing was needed there either?
No, because no one wants to live there for long.